Hello everyone. Welcome to Synapse. Today, we embark on a fascinating journey into the world of excretory products and their elimination. Specifically, we'll be focusing on the disorders that can affect this vital system. From basic understanding to competitive insights, we'll explore kidney stones, kidney failure, and more. Get ready to unravel the complexities of our excretory system's health. Let's start with the basics. What are some common problems that can affect our body's waste removal system? It's simpler than you think. Our first common disorder is renal calculi, more commonly known as kidney stones. These are hard deposits of minerals and salts that form inside your kidneys. Imagine tiny pebbles forming where they shouldn't. They can cause immense pain as they try to pass through the urinary tract. The primary cause is often concentrated urine due to insufficient fluid intake or certain dietary factors. The most prevalent type of kidney stone is made of calcium oxalate. Next, we have glomerulonephritis. This refers to the inflammation of the glomeruli, which are the tiny filtering units within your kidneys. When these crucial filters are damaged, your kidneys struggle to properly clean your blood. This condition can stem from infections, autoimmune diseases, or even genetic predispositions, often leading to noticeable blood and protein in your urine. Finally, we discuss renal failure or kidney failure. This severe condition occurs when your kidneys lose their ability to effectively remove waste products and excess fluid from your blood. When this happens, harmful substances start to build up in your body, leading to serious health issues. Renal failure can manifest into main forms: acute, which is a sudden and rapid onset, or chronic, which involves a gradual and progressive loss of kidney function over time. A classic example of acute renal failure is when there's a sudden and significant drop in blood flow to the kidneys, compromising their immediate function. Now, let's test your understanding with a few quick questions. Take a moment to think about the answers. Question 1. Which of the following is a common component of kidney stones? Question 2. Inflammation of the glomeruli in the kidney is known as what? And question 3. Renal failure primarily results in the accumulation of what in the blood? Good luck! Ready to dive a bit deeper? Let's explore the causes, symptoms, and basic treatments for these excretory disorders. Our deeper dive begins with uremia. This isn't just a symptom, it's a severe condition where waste products, especially urea, build up in the blood because the kidneys are failing. It's a hallmark of advanced kidney disease. Uremia is primarily caused by chronic kidney disease or acute kidney injury, where the kidneys simply can't filter blood effectively. The symptoms can be quite broad, including nausea, vomiting, persistent fatigue, a noticeable loss of appetite, and swelling, known as edema. In very severe cases, it can even lead to serious neurological problems, highlighting the widespread impact of kidney dysfunction on the body. Let's revisit renal calculi, or kidney stones, with more detail. These stones form when your urine becomes highly concentrated, allowing mineral crystals like calcium, oxalate, or uric acid to clump together. Not drinking enough fluids is a major culprit. There are several types: calcium stones, which are the most common, struvite stones, often linked to urinary tract infections, uric acid stones, associated with conditions like gout, and cystine stones, which are due to a genetic disorder. Symptoms include excruciating pain, known as renal colic, in your back or side, painful urination, blood in your urine, and sometimes nausea and vomiting. Treatment often involves increasing fluid intake, pain relief, medications to help stone passage, shock wave therapy called lithotripsy, or surgery for larger stones. Moving on to glomerulonephritis, let's look at its underlying pathology. Damage to the tiny filtering capillaries in the glomeruli impairs their ability to filter blood properly. This leads to blood cells and proteins leaking into the urine. Causes range from post-streptococcal infections and autoimmune diseases like lupus to IgA nephropathy or certain vasculitis conditions. It can be acute, meaning sudden, or chronic, developing over time. Key symptoms include hematuria, which is blood in the urine, proteinuria, meaning protein in the urine, often causing foamy urine, edema or swelling, and hypertension, which is high blood pressure. Treatment varies depending on the cause and may involve antibiotics for infections, immunosuppressants for autoimmune conditions, blood pressure management, and dietary adjustments. Time for some medium-level questions. Question 1. Which of the following is not typically a symptom of uremia? Question 2. The most common type of kidney stone is primarily composed of what? Question 3. Glomerulonephritis is characterized by the inflammation of which part of the kidney? Question 4. A sudden and rapid loss of kidney function is termed as what? And finally, question 5. Which treatment method uses shock waves to break kidney stones? Think carefully and good luck. Alright, let's turn up the heat. We are now moving into the hard level, where we'll analyze complex mechanisms and advanced treatments. Let's compare acute versus chronic renal failure. Acute renal failure, or AKI, is a sudden and rapid decrease in the glomerular filtration rate, leading to a quick buildup of waste. It's often reversible if caught and treated promptly. Causes can be prerenal, like severe dehydration or shock, intrinsic, involving direct damage to kidney tissue from conditions like acute tubular necrosis or nephrotoxic drugs, or postrenal, due to obstructions such as an enlarged prostate or kidney stones. In contrast, chronic renal failure, or CKD, is a progressive and irreversible decline in kidney function over many months or years. Common culprits include long-standing diabetes mellitus, uncontrolled hypertension, various forms of glomerulonephritis, and polycystic kidney disease. When CKD progresses to its final stage, end-stage renal disease, the glomerular filtration rate drops below 15 ml per minute, requiring dialysis or a kidney transplant. Now, let's delve into dialysis, a critical renal replacement therapy. Hemodialysis involves drawing blood from the patient, filtering it through an artificial kidney called a dialyzer outside the body to remove wastes and excess fluid, and then returning the clean blood. This process typically requires specific vascular access, like a surgically created fistula, and is usually done 3 times a week for several hours. On the other hand, peritoneal dialysis uses the patient's own peritoneal cavity. A sterile solution, called dialysate, is introduced into the abdomen through a catheter. The peritoneum, the lining of the abdomen, acts as a natural semi-permeable membrane. Wastes and fluid move from the blood into the dialysate, which is then drained and discarded. This method offers flexibility as it can often be performed at home. Finally, kidney transplantation. This involves surgically placing a healthy kidney, either from a deceased or living donor, into a recipient whose own kidneys have failed. The deceased kidneys are usually left in place unless they are causing complications. The advantages are significant: a greatly improved quality of life, freedom from the rigors of dialysis, and often a longer life expectancy. However, there are substantial challenges. The primary concern is the risk of rejection, where the recipient's immune system attacks the new organ. This necessitates lifelong immunosuppressive medications, which in turn increase the risk of infections due to a weakened immune system. Surgical complications are also a consideration, making transplantation a complex but life-changing procedure. Let's tackle some harder questions now. Question 1. Differentiate between acute and chronic renal failure based on their reversibility. Question 2. Which type of dialysis uses the patient's own peritoneum as a filtering membrane? Question 3. A major challenge in kidney transplantation is the body's immune response, leading to what? Question 4. What is the primary cause of anemia observed in chronic kidney disease patients? Question 5. Which of the following is not a prerenal cause of acute kidney injury? Question 6. The accumulation of nitrogenous waste products and other toxins in the blood due to kidney failure is broadly termed as what? And finally, question 7. What is the primary role of immunosuppressive drugs after a kidney transplant? Good luck! Welcome to the hardest level. Here, we'll explore the cutting edge of excretory disorders, delving into molecular mechanisms, advanced technologies, and ethical dilemmas. This is competitive level insight. Let's uncover the molecular mechanisms behind glomerular injury. In conditions like lupus nephritis, immune complex deposition occurs when antigen-antibody complexes get trapped within the glomerular basement membrane or mesangium. This triggers a potent inflammatory response, drawing in immune cells that release damaging enzymes and reactive oxygen species. Another severe mechanism is anti-GBM disease, where antibodies directly attack components of the glomerular basement membrane itself, as seen in Goodpasture's syndrome, leading to rapid and aggressive inflammation. Lastly, podocytopathy involves damage to podocytes, specialized cells crucial for the filtration barrier. When these cells are compromised, as in minimal change disease, it directly leads to significant protein leakage into the urine, highlighting their critical role in kidney function. Now, let's dive into advanced aspects of renal replacement therapy. In hemodialysis, the technology of dialyzers is crucial. Modern dialyzers feature hollow fibers made from highly permeable synthetic membranes, like polysulfone. Their efficiency hinges on a large surface area, optimal pore size, and biocompatibility. High-flux dialyzers, for instance, excel at removing larger solutes more rapidly. For vascular access in hemodialysis, an arteriovenous fistula, a surgical connection between an artery and a vein, is the gold standard due to its lower risks of infection and clotting. If a fistula isn't possible, an AV graft, using a synthetic tube, is an alternative, while central venous catheters are typically reserved for temporary access. However, dialysis isn't without its complications. Hemodialysis can lead to hypertension and muscle cramps, while peritoneal dialysis carries a significant risk of peritonitis, an infection of the peritoneal lining, along with other catheter-related issues. Understanding immunosuppression in transplantation is key to preventing rejection. Regimens typically involve a cocktail of drugs. Calcineurin inhibitors like cyclosporin and tacrolimus work by blocking T-cell activation, crucial for the immune response. Antiproliferative agents such as azathioprine or mycophenolate mofetil prevent the rapid multiplication of lymphocytes, reducing the immune system's attack. Corticosteroids like prednisone provide broad anti-inflammatory effects. Initially, stronger induction therapies, often involving antibodies, are used to powerfully suppress the immune system. Rejection can manifest in different ways. Hyperacute rejection is immediate, caused by pre-existing antibodies, and leads to rapid graft failure. It's prevented by careful cross-matching. Acute rejection occurs days to months later, mediated by T-cells or antibodies, and is often treatable. Chronic rejection, a gradual, long-term decline in graft function, is more complex and less responsive to treatment, making long-term graft survival a continuous challenge. Let's consider the ethical landscape and future therapies. Organ donation presents significant ethical dilemmas, balancing the needs of recipients with the rights of living donors, the fair allocation of scarce diseased donor organs, and ensuring truly informed consent. Looking ahead, xenotransplantation, the use of animal organs, particularly from genetically modified pigs, in humans, offers a promising but challenging frontier. Major hurdles include overcoming hyperacute rejection and addressing ethical concerns about potential zoonotic disease transmission. Even more futuristic are bioartificial kidneys, implantable devices that aim to combine living renal cells with advanced artificial membranes. These could potentially replicate the complex functions of a natural kidney, offering a revolutionary alternative to current dialysis and transplantation methods, transforming the lives of those with end-stage renal disease. Now, let's test your expertise with the first 5 hardest questions. Question 1. Explain the primary immunological mechanism behind hyperacute rejection in kidney transplantation. Question 2. How do calcineurin inhibitors like tacrolimus primarily prevent organ rejection at a molecular level? Question 3. Differentiate between high-flux and low-flux dialyzers in hemodialysis, considering their impact on solute removal. Question 4. Describe the role of podocytes in maintaining the glomerular filtration barrier and how their damage contributes to proteinuria. And question 5. A patient on peritoneal dialysis develops sudden abdominal pain, fever, and cloudy dialysate. What is the most likely diagnosis and its common causative agent? Take your time to formulate comprehensive answers. Continuing with the hardest questions, here are the next 5. Question 6. Discuss the potential benefits and major immunological challenges associated with xenotransplantation as a future solution for end-stage renal disease. Question 7. Why is an arteriovenous fistula generally preferred over an AV graft or central venous catheter for long-term hemodialysis access? Question 8. Beyond urea, name 2 other waste products that accumulate in uremia and explain their systemic effects. Question 9. In the context of glomerulonephritis, explain how anti-GBM antibodies lead to kidney damage. And finally, question 10. What are the key differences in the mechanism of waste removal between hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis? These questions require detailed, analytical responses. And that brings us to the end of our in-depth exploration of excretory disorders. We've covered everything from the basics of kidney stones to the cutting-edge science of transplantation and future therapies. We hope this session has been incredibly insightful and has deepened your understanding of this vital biological system. For more such comprehensive educational content, make sure to visit synapse.omaps.in. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for regular updates and more engaging lessons. Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep excelling in your NEET preparations. Thank you for joining us today.